as we do with each opportunity here, and then I'll give some words of introduction, and we'll move right into our time together. Is that all right? Want to be faithful to your time and our time. Make sure that we are moving ahead. Miss Jeannie, you ain't got to sit way back there. Come on up here. You don't never sit in the back. Always in the front. You gonna come sit in the back like don't nobody know you. I don't nobody want to hear all that. Get on up here. Get on up here. We're gonna pray for you too. Amen. Let's pray, family. God, how we are grateful for another day. How we are grateful that you've allowed us to come to the closing part of the day. God, we thank you for keeping us all day and all week thus far. We pray now for this session. We pray that all information that is offered would be fruitful, that it would help us in understanding, and that any questions that come forth would give us even greater clarity about that with which we are dealing. We pray for those in this weather who have no home. We pray for those in this weather who are not confident in their water, who are not confident in all of the things that they should be confident in our communities, God. We pray that when we leave this place that you make us agents of change, agents of your health, healing, and wholeness, that everyone would have the opportunity to be blessed with access to good food, to good water. Help us to be agents of change and agents of justice. It's our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Again, welcome again to this town hall meeting. As you know, First Baptist Church, this ain't the first time we've had town hall meetings. We try to make sure that we are in the community. We try to make sure that we are making sure that our community is aware of what's going on. And so to that end, this evening, we're having a town hall meeting to address concerns and to hear from the Illinois EPA with regard to safe levels of lead in the water, with regard to how they have seen things move with regard to the case that we have been dealing with since June 14th, 2019. I used to know the amount of days. I don't know how many days that is now. But during that time, there have been a number of cases in court. There have been a number of town hall meetings. There have been a number of opportunities to learn, to fight, to try to get things straight. And a big piece of fighting for rights is education. A big piece of it is knowing what it is that we are fighting for, knowing what are the facts, and how we move forward from there. We are happy to have the Illinois EPA with us. Some of you will remember, I know Ms. Jean was here in our first town hall meeting. The Illinois EPA was here. In our second town hall meeting, the Illinois EPA was here in 2019. And so thank you all for coming back and for being with us this evening. Here's how we're going to do it. Whether you're in the sanctuary or on your sofa, you'll be able to ask questions after the presentation that the Illinois EPA gives. They've come with a slide deck to give us information and education about what some of their research is and how it is affecting us. Out of that, we can have some questions of our own because, and you should know this, you already know this, part of the concern, even with the court case that has been adjudicated, part of the concern has been around trust. Part of the concern has been around the rub. Why should we trust Aqua now? All of those types of rubs are evident, and we are hearing it from people still, right? Also concerns with the technical assistance program, right? How does that play out? Who gets to get some of it, because people have already talked about being denied and all of these types of pieces. So we want to have some questions around that. Again, we'll have questions not only in the sanctuary, but if you are watching by way of web stream, we will be taking your questions online and we'll be offering them as we move forward. Is that all right? Cool. Yeah. It's Facebook. It's Facebook Live, and it is Facebook Live. First Baptist Church. That's the name of the church, ain't it? First Baptist Church of University Park. Our Facebook Live. So we are streaming right now. We're streaming right now. Y'all pray for this man. We're streaming right now. First Baptist Church of University Park. Are we also on YouTube, Chris? So you can get that on YouTube and on Facebook Live. You'll have the streams there. So whichever one you are more comfortable with, we're happy to man both of those so that you can have questions. So if you have questions. I forget anything? That's it? So what I want to do now, I want to bring Mr. James Jennings, who is the director of the Illinois EPA, to the podium. He will introduce his team, and he'll be going forward from there. All right, Mr. Jennings, welcome.
All right, good evening, everybody, and both here in the room and online. As Pastor Williams said, I'm James Jennings. I'm the agency's director, and we have an entire team here tonight to help try to answer your questions. That's not to say that you won't have some that we can't answer. I mean, we have a team of smart people who do a lot of diverse work, and because of the nature of drinking water issues, there are going to be some things that you may ask us that we have to come back to you on. But I'm committing to you that we will. We've been working with Oliver and Pastor Justin over the past few months, and I mean, we hear where you're coming from. I mean, when you've had years of concerns about your water, it would be unrealistic for anyone to say, well, here, we'll flip a switch, and you now need to immediately believe what's coming your way. And so it's human nature, and I mean, I appreciate that. Ultimately, the IEPA is a service organization, and our service to you for this really comes in three different arenas. One, it's our responsibility as the state water steward to ensure that you and everyone else in Illinois is afforded clean drinking water. And that's one of our primary responsibilities. We do this work and have done it for over 50 years, and we want to be able to continue to do that. And so that is our responsibility number one. The second is to be accountable to you all. I mean, even though all of us are lifetime government workers, we are accountable to you because you are citizens of Illinois, and ultimately it is our responsibility to do our work with you in mind. And so to that end, I want you to hold us accountable. So you will have very difficult questions for us tonight. It is incumbent upon us to be able to give you answers to them in a manner that satisfies your concern and in a timely manner. And so again, if there is a scenario that we aren't able to address your questions tonight, we will be back to you this week with answers. And if it's not something that falls within our portfolio, like we've been doing with Pastor Justin and Oliver for the past few months, we will track down the people within the state government to get you that information. I mean, that's the least that we can do as public servants for you all. And the third is that we're making a commitment to you all that this is not the end of the line. There's a lot of situations where once a case is concluded, that there's a sense that perhaps the people who were involved are stepping away because we've done whatever our individual role was. That's not how I view the agency's work. That's not how I know our team views the agency's work. We have a continuing obligation to ensure that you all are taken care of. And the way that we do that is through meetings like this, through continued communication with you and your community leaders, and having what amounts to an open door policy so that if you have questions about us, you have concerns that we can help address, that we do so and do so in the most faithful manner possible. So tonight is not the conclusion of any of these discussions. I expect that you will have further conversations with me, with our team that are here, and some of our team who weren't able to make it tonight. But again, I am committing to you that we are going to be here to help address your issues to the best that we can. So I do want to kind of go over who we have in-house tonight. So Andrew Armstrong is our chief counsel. Andrew previously also worked with the Attorney General's office, and so he's going to provide an overview from the slide deck covering the background as well as how things got to where we are. There's going to be some stuff in the slide deck that you all already know. And the reason that we've included that is that we recognize that people couldn't be here tonight, but Pastor Justin has the slides and he can distribute them to others. It's to provide context for somebody who maybe wasn't here to see us walk through them. So I know for me, like when I'm hearing something I already know, it can be a little obnoxious. And so I want to be respectful of you all in that respect. So just bear with us as we step through those. So Andrew will cover that. Barb Lieberoff from our Office of Community Relations is going to go over the technical assistance program and next steps on that. Barb has been doing this type of work for her entire career. She's been with the agency since 1993. And so she's well versed in trying to work with communities to ensure that the level of trust that is eroded is rebuilt. Then beyond that, we have three people from our Bureau of Water. Chris Johnston, who Chris has many jobs, but among them is that he's leading our drinking water permitting group. Jenny Larson and Adam Nutt, both from our drinking water section. I mean, these are some of the foremost experts in the country in the field in their individual fields. And so, again, you may have questions that we can't touch on tonight because we need to go back to some more other folks, but we will be back with you as quickly as we can. One item that Oliver wanted me to touch on and that he and I discussed briefly before I came up. So I know that there's been some concerns about the lab that is ultimately being used to do the water sampling. And those concerns are fair. I mean, given the experience that you all have had, it's natural and you should question every piece of information given to you. Our Division of Labs manager was not able to make the trip up tonight. She's had some outside obligations, but she has said that she is open to having discussions with anybody about both the state lab certification process that we undertake, her own review of the records that Oliver and Justin had provided, reflecting some of the work that PACE has done, and also her independent assessment of PACE's work, which she said that while as a state body, we're not in a position to say, well, you should go use this lab or this set of services. She said that that is one of the ones that has been consistently the best performing in the audits that we do of them that we're required to do under federal law. And so she did extend her apologies for not being able to make it up, but I anticipate that some combination of you all will be in touch with her, and you, again, feel free, like you can with us, ask as many questions as you'd like. So again, I really appreciate you all coming out. I know it's frigid. I know there are probably other things that you would want to do on Wednesday night. And frankly, if 5 years ago, you should have, or 6 years ago, you would not have expected to be in a room like this talking about something that is as clear a human right as access to clean drinking water. And so I appreciate that you're taking your time to address this. Anything that we can do tonight and going forward, you have my commitment that we will. And now I will go ahead and I'll turn it over to Andrew, and so he can give the background of the case and then start through our slide deck.
Thank you so much, James, and thank you, Reverend Williams, for that wonderful introduction. And you had spoken about confidence in drinking water, and that is why we are here today, because we understand that is so important to people everywhere, that they can have access to safe drinking water within their home. It's one of our most important missions as an agency. James mentioned I worked for the Attorney General's office prior to coming to the Illinois EPA. I came to the Illinois EPA in July of this year. Before that, I worked at the Attorney General's office, combined 14 years in environmental enforcement. I handled all sorts of cases, air pollution, water pollution, land pollution, but I saw that the cases that most deeply impacted people were drinking water because of its central role in our homes. Every time you go in your home, you need water. And I did not work on this case when I was at the Attorney General's office. I was in the Springfield office downstate, so this wasn't part of my territory. But one of my first roles in my new job was to evaluate the University Park consent order with Aqua, review it, make sure that I believe that would resolve the violations, and more importantly, to protect public health. And then after I made that evaluation, to sign it. And I take that obligation very seriously. When I put my name on a consent order, I want to know that it's going to actually impact people and help people. And for the reasons that I'll talk about now, I believe that because of the work that Illinois EPA made Aqua do to make sure that its water is safe, the water today is safe, and further, that the Technical Assistance Program offers additional resources to homeowners to make sure that all the fixtures in their home are safe. So I'm going to go through, I know that you have lived this. I am looking at this from 2024, so I won't pretend to talk about 2019 through 2024 in detail, but I'll give you an overview of the most important facts that I've seen in reviewing the case. And again, we're very happy to talk and answer questions after we finish the presentation. Do we have the slide deck, or Oh, excellent. Could you please go to the next slide? Okay. So this is a little bit hard to see here, but this, I believe, is the most important part of the story here because it shows what happened as measured through the sampling of homes that were impacted. And in a nutshell, when Aqua switched its source water in 2017 from groundwater to water from the Kankakee River, the unfortunate effect of that is the chemistry of the water was different. And when you switch water sources, it's very important to make sure that you've got a proper chemical balance in place, because the way that we protect against lead contamination in water is something called corrosion control. And we're going to come back to this slide, but and I'm going to get into the corrosion control and the lead. But what I really want to stress and point out here is that when this problem was first observed in June of 2019, and when the Illinois EPA and the Attorney General's office went into action and sued Aqua in state court, lead levels were unacceptably high as measured by sampling. And they were a hazardous level, in fact. And the reason for that, what I'll get into, is because of that switch in the water supply. When Illinois EPA demanded, as Aqua was required to do, that it adjust its corrosion control, you can see the measured levels come down. In April of 2020, Aqua began treatment with a chemical called phosphoric acid, which improved the corrosion control. It wasn't good enough, though. You can see that red line toward the bottom there, 15 parts per billion. That's the regulatory standard we needed Aqua to get to. Illinois EPA and the Attorney General's office continued to work with Aqua to make sure that they had the right treatment. In fact, we worked with the United States Environmental Protection Agency. We worked with outside experts around the country, experts on corrosion control, to find the best method possible. And then in August of 2021, we began treatment with adding zinc to the treatment as well. So a zinc orthophosphate treatment. Don't ask me what that means exactly, but it was a treatment that was more effective in controlling the corrosion. And because of that, as you can see, from July through December of 2021, through the last measurement on here, January through December 2024, lead levels have remained below the regulatory standard. In fact, are now very far below the regulatory standard. So the overall big problem that created this issue, the change in water supply and then the resulting problems with corrosion control, under Illinois EPA oversight, that has been corrected. And because of that, the severe threat from 2019 has been abated. That's the big picture. I understand there's a lot of questions, I'm sure, about aspects of that, but I'm going to try to go into that a little bit more. So if you can move on to the next slide, please. So I kind of started getting this a little bit, but I think it's important to talk about how lead can get into your drinking water. And, like I said, I've been practicing environmental law for a long time, and this particular area is a very complicated one. And one of the more complicated regulatory programs, but the long and the short of it is that lead doesn't come from the Kankakee River. It doesn't come from wells. It doesn't come from the source water that a utility like Aqua is supplying people. The way that the lead gets into the water are in fixtures, number one, within homes or within lead service lines. Lead comes into the water along the way before it comes out of the faucet. And the way that we get around that, as I mentioned, was the corrosion control. So Nobody's putting lead in the water, but we need to make sure that the lead in pipes, in faucets, and in all the other things that water passes through before you use it doesn't come into the water. That's the corrosion control. That's the purpose of the chemicals like the orthophosphates I mentioned. And what those chemicals do is they actually put a lining, chemical lining around the pipe so that the lead can't and won't leach into the water. So if you've got effective corrosion control, that's why when Aqua tests for compliance now, we have the very low levels that you see, because that means the corrosion control is working. And that's a constant thing that has to be done, and that's why Aqua will always be consistently tested under federal and state law to make sure that corrosion control continues to work like the way we need it to. And I say Aqua, and that's every water utility. Any water utility that serves people in the United States needs to be tested routinely to make sure that corrosion control is working. So how does lead get in the drinking water? Homes built before 1987. Thank goodness we do not use lead anymore, but we still have lead in the environment. Now, service lines. I mentioned service lines. Based on Aqua's survey, it has not identified any lead service lines in University Park. But it has identified service lines that have lead solder, which was a common, material used at the time. And moreover, if you live in a home built before 1987, it's very possible that you yourself have fixtures within your home that have lead in them or lead solder within them. So I will defer to our technical experts of the agency, and they conclude below. For University Park, the information we have points to lead solder in plumbing inside homes as the principal cause of the lead that got into the drinking water. So what can we do about that? Well, and we can move on to the next slide, please. So what steps do community water supplies take to keep lead out of drinking water? I talked about this before, but again, community water supplies need to provide corrosion-controlled treatment chemicals to form a scale on the inside of the pipes and prevent lead from leaching into the water. They got to do regular sampling to demonstrate that that's working. And as Acting Director Jennings stressed, that sampling must use a certified lab and sample collectors. Community water supplies can't just go and, run the samples themselves. They need to go to a lab that has been certified as being capable and audited and checked out to make sure that they're getting proper results. And I mean, fundamentally, that's what our environmental system is based on, is that these labs are checked on and audited and ensure that they give people proper results. And that's how we know there are violations, because the people at those labs, they run the samples and they say, hey, look, you're at 120, you need to be at 15. So again, the certified labs are a very important part of this. So then the information is submitted routinely to Illinois EPA. We review the information and we ensure that people are in compliance. If they're not in compliance, we take action very quickly, like we did in 2019 when those high levels of lead were found. So next slide, please. This kind of runs through the background and the timeline that I already talked about, so I won't go into detail on it, but again, we had the switch from groundwater in 2017. We had sample results in June of 2019 showing elevated levels of lead. In August of 2019, the state of Illinois and Will County filed a lawsuit against Aqua concerning those elevated lead levels. Next slide, please. And then, as I talked about the compliance aspect of it, 2019 corrosion control studies. In 2020 through 2021, the corrosion control treatment was applied and adjusted as necessary to ensure compliance with the lead level. And since that time, we have had those results showing low levels of lead. Next slide, please. So before I turn this over to Barb, who's going to talk about the technical assistance program, I heard some, when it was mentioned at the top, I heard some concern from perhaps for people that feel like it's not working for them. And I want to say just a few words about the technical assistance program. We do want to hear any issues with implementation about it, because this was something that was important to the state of Illinois to include in the consent order. When a defendant like Aqua is liable for violations under the Illinois Environmental Protection Act, the act generally says that they should be assessed civil penalties. They should pay money to the government as a punishment, or as a reason not to do it again. In this case, we all, Illinois EPA, Attorney General's office, thought it was important that instead of money going into the state treasury, we have money that goes to the benefit of the community. And that was the intent behind the technical assistance program. And the relief it provides is actually not something that's otherwise available under Illinois law, or any law for that matter, at least on the environmental side. Because what it actually says is that for the homes that are eligible for relief under the technical assistance program, they can sign up, they can request testing by Aqua of their water, and if you do happen to have in your home one of those fixtures, a faucet that has lead in it, lead solder like we talked about, and if that is actually causing lead levels in your home, you can get that addressed and replaced. You can get money for your home. And so I just want to stress that this is something that's not otherwise available, and just urge you, if you've not attempted to seek assistance from technical assistance program, please consider doing so, because it is free resources that the state got specifically for the impacted community. And please let that money go to the community and do good here. So I think that's all I've got to say at this point, but I am very happy to join my colleagues in answering questions at the end here. And I'll turn it over to my colleague Barb, who's going to tell you more about the technical assistance program. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. I think he stole my thunder, though, a little bit and just talked about the program. But no, I'm just kidding. Thank you very much. I'll introduce myself a little bit. I'm Barb Lieberoff with the Office of Community Relations, and I've been working pretty heavily since the beginning with the residents of University Park with this. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the technical assistance program and highlight some of the big issues with it, and one of the some of the important factors with it. And probably the most important, I think, highlight I wanted to do is you need to enroll by March 7th, 2025. That's probably one of the biggest factors. And to do that, you need to enroll through waterfaxillinoisil.com. To date, we've had 118 people sign up, and those involved in the customer resource area are eligible to sign up through the technical assistance program. As Andrew mentioned, if you're eligible, those who in that customer resource area, if you can get your water tested at the kitchen faucet. If you're above that 15 regulatory requirement area, you can move to the next steps and get that sample free filter device. If you're above, they will come do in your kitchen to do inspection of your pipes. I believe it's about 14 days. Yep, 14 days. Within 14 days, they will do another sample. If you are then above, then the plumber will come and just replace those pipes, and all of that for, I guess, the most important thing I'm going to say tonight, for free. That was the most important thing under the consent order, is this technical assistance program that we wanted the state of Illinois to give back to the community here. If there are any questions, we are willing to answer those questions tonight for you. But there are numerous residents I think can still be signed up. We have one, I think, resident who is fully completed kitchen faucet plumbing replacement through the program itself. But as I mentioned, we've only had 118 people sign up. Probably one of the biggest things you need to do through the program is there's something called a customer cooperation requirement. You need to sign that, send it back to Aqua. There is a couple other requirements that you need to do. There are certain things that you need to follow with written requirements in there as well. It's all within that requirement there to read. But any issues, myself, and I also have someone with me today, Sarah, in the back of the room. We've been on the phone talking to residents. If there's any questions with that customer service requirement, we've been going through those with residents, answering any questions, helping get signed up for the technical assistance program. But it's free, and that's what we keep pushing, just to get everyone involved. We want everyone to fully take involved in this program that we can. So if we can answer any questions tonight, that is exactly what we're here for. So I think I'll just turn that back over. Pastor Dustin, if you want to take over, or I can, walk through it. I'd be happy to do that as well. So however we can do that, I'd be happy to do it.
Thank you so much. Good evening to everyone. Once again, I'm Reverend Justin Hamler. I serve as the Associate Pastor for Justice and Community Engagement here at First Baptist Church of University Park. First, let me say thank you for coming out tonight. We have about 14 people that are watching online via Facebook and YouTube, and so we want to welcome you all that are watching. At this time, we're going to open the floor up for questions. So you've heard some information, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions. And so at this time, we invite you to come to either one of the mics. We ask that you line up at either one of the mics, and then you can ask your question, as many questions as you may have. To those of you that are watching online, we invite you to drop your questions in the comment box, and I'll be sure to ask those questions on your behalf. So at this time, if you want to come into the aisles, line up at the mics, and then we can ask the questions. We have microphones on both sides, so please use those. Thank you so much.
Good evening. I'm Mrs. Boyd. I'm a resident of University Park. The question that I have is, do you have a list of the homes that are in those areas that are suffering with lead in their water?
So is your question whether the community impact area or just more broadly?
Is that what, okay, impacted area. Do you have a list of homes that are being impacted?
Yes, I believe, we do.
Okay, how have you contacted those homes?
So Barb actually spearheaded this for us, so I will let her know.
You have a copy of our fact sheets. We mailed fact sheets to everyone in University Park. If you are in the customer resource area who is eligible for the technical assistance program, you received a copy of the fact sheet for the consent order. You also received a copy of a fact sheet for the technical assistance program, and then a copy of what we're calling the TAP steps, or the technical assistance steps. So I believe there's about 2,000 people who are eligible. Sure. Sorry, I apologize. Apologize to those online. So there's about 2,000 people who are eligible for the technical assistance program. And that's based off of addresses we received. And so that's how many who are eligible for the technical assistance program.
And you've only received 118?
That is correct.
Okay, well, how are you going to reach out to make sure you get into these people?
Well, we are working with Aqua to make sure they are consistent. Aqua has been, they also are mailed and called those, I believe it was a mailer that went to everyone who in the customer resource area. As soon as the consent order was signed, July 24th, those mailers went out.
But you're not really sure?
I do know that is a fact.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. I would like to see a real serious effort made to contact those homeowners regarding this situation that we're dealing with here. If you have to set up phone banks or whatever, have them call. If you have to send that in the mail with their bill, because these people are still paying for this water, are they not?
We could certainly reevaluate how that contact is being done and see if that second round, again, we could certainly reevaluate how that contact's being done.
Okay, and the deadline is March?
March 7th, 2025.
Okay, I'd like to see something really stringent happen. I'd like for you to really press,
Absolutely.
put your foot on the gas and go with that.
Absolutely.
And make more than one, reach out to those people.
Right, absolutely.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gina Williams, trustee of University Park. And to you, Ms. Boyd, I want you to know I do have TAP applications here tonight, myself and trustee Lewis. We've been at different events and we've had people to sign up. We have applications at our Village Hall. We also have them at our 90 Town Center when there are board meetings and things. They're out there on the table. So I push it all the time. I get anywhere from 10 to 15, sometimes 20 calls a week regarding Aqua, customers, people having complaints, problems. So I've even taken the time to personally mail the application with a return envelope and a stamp to make it easy for them to get that information. When we went to court, we advised Aqua at that time, I think they had about 10 attorneys, and we let them know that we wanted to also have an ad campaign because we felt we needed to have signs and things throughout the neighborhood and elsewhere to let people know the importance of signing up for the TAP program. Unfortunately, I've only seen one sign. Our attorney has been notioned by the village manager, so hopefully we'll get them up because there's not a whole lot of time left. So we need to really be urgent and get on this. But what I am hearing, a lot of people are saying, including myself, did not qualify. And that's troubling because everyone that I've talked to, which I say I talked to a lot of people, say we did not qualify. So also you need to make sure people know the limit is 3,500 for the pipes. But my thing is this, if not that many people aren't signing up and if it should go over that amount, we had $900,000 set aside for this program. That should be utilized. Another concern that I have is 2017 to, June 14th, 2019, the day that we got the bad news. We have been drinking that water. We have been consuming it. We had mothers out here making formula, other things. A lot of people have been sick in this community, and I can't say that it's just Aqua, but we've had a lot of deaths, a lot of cancer. So during that time when you all weren't regulating or didn't know about it, a lot of people got sick, and I don't know what's going to ever become of that. Some of us may be walking around even now with long-term sickness as an effect or after, effect of this. So we don't know where to go from here. I think, it's not a good thing. And from what I understand, this TAP and is it Rambo or what's the name of the company?
Rambo.
Rambo. Okay, they're supposed to be a separate entity, but yet, I heard you say we should call Aqua. I didn't think Aqua had anything to do with it.
It's, Aqua's, the number is how you sign up.
Right.
And then waterfaxil.com is associated with Rambo.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because we wanted that clear, that it would be a third-party company.
Yes,
And that Aqua would
absolutely.
have no influence on it. We want to make sure that what we're doing is separate
Right.
from Aqua, because they're the coal pit, and there's no need in us getting them mixed up in this.
Right.
So we want to make sure. And I want to know, how often does anybody ever check that water tower samples? Because if some catastrophe happened, what about that water? Is it clean? Is it fresh? Is it tampered with? I mean, does anybody know? Does that ever get checked?
So my name is Adam Nutt. I'm the compliance officer for the lead and copper section.
Okay.
So that water tower would be considered an entry point to the distribution system. Whenever we make them do lead and copper sampling, there's two areas: the distribution system, which would be the homes, and entry points. And so they do sample the entry points to the distribution system every 6 months.
Okay. Also, since you all know that we don't own our water system, where do we go from here? I see you all have grants and funding and things available. How do we qualify? We're like in a catch-22. We need the help. We're a disadvantaged community at this point with a bad water system. And, I've traveled to Washington even, to the Environmental Protection Agency. And they didn't have a lot of answers, but they did tell us, check here, check there. But we've been checking, researching, and we're still coming up short. Our schools, the faucets are still taped up. The library, the faucets are still taped up. The parks. Our children are in school 8 hours, but they're not getting clean, fresh water. At least, we the parents, we don't trust it, so they don't trust it. So what help can you guys give us?
So you mentioned the issue with the ownership. And what we as the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency can provide is the regulation of the drinking water. What we can do is we can make sure that Aqua provides the treatment it needs to have safe drinking water. Now, the way that things are regulated, the way that Aqua sets rates, for example, or determines what kind of projects it's going to do, that's something that's regulated by the Illinois Commerce Commission with Aqua as a public utility. So the way to engage on that front would be in front of the Illinois Commerce Commission, which is outside of our lane. But I can promise that we will continue to do everything we can on the drinking water front.
Okay, next stop, ICC for me.
And then on your, 2 points on this. So we've been working with Pastor Justin to get information from the Illinois Commerce Commission. Again, just recognizing that we don't want you all to be in a situation where you're in this constant battle of being told, well, that's not my job. Like, we're going to find the answers for you. On the funding, so there are traditionally 2 buckets of funding that are available, the public funding that are available for water infrastructures: federal funding and state funding. The state of Illinois is unique in that we have a bonded state revolving fund, meaning that we actually we don't have to rely on the federal government to get us money for water infrastructure. We have a fund that generates interest and it repopulates every year. And so to that end, and recognizing the profound need, the group within our Bureau of Water that runs that program has started doing technical assistance with communities that maybe don't have the the capacity internally to prepare a state grant application, basically ensuring that communities that would qualify are able to go through the bureaucracy of getting a grant. And so what I can talk to our folks when I get back tomorrow is that we can have somebody reach out to University Park to walk through the options that are available. The most traditional funding that's available is for lead service line replacement, that's partially driven by a national initiative. And then there's other water infrastructure for like pipe improvements, modernization efforts. And so these are things that our folks are very well in tune with how to help communities get through the process, what may be best needed for you all, and so they'd be able to help with that. As far as federal funding, it's unclear what federal funding, if any, will be available going forward. That happens with any administration change. But what I can commit to on that is that we as an agency are steadfast in seeking every federal dollar available. And so whatever the incoming administration decides their priorities with land, air, and water issues, if there's money available, we are going to do everything we can to secure that money and bring it back here.
I wanted to also speak real quick. You had mentioned schools and child care facilities. The Illinois EPA is implementing, starting this year, a new testing program specifically for schools and child care facilities, which over the next 5 years, every single elementary school and registered child care facility will have lead testing conducted at it. And then over the next 5 years, additionally, every middle school and high school can request to have samples, and they will have to come out and test those. In addition to that sampling, they'll be providing lead health effects language notice to the schools as far as what sort of aerators on the faucets or lead-bearing plumbing can cause high lead in those schools. And so this is an Illinois EPA sample program that we're doing additional on top of any existing Department of Public Health lead sampling in schools and child care facilities. So there is additional sampling at those child care facilities and elementary schools specific to lead that's happening this year.
Hi, my name is Trustee Lewis. My question is, where does the water start when it comes into University Park? And was the sampling done there at the beginning where the lines lead into our town? And also, was it also tested down in Kankakee where the connectors are?
So the sampling process, after the action level exceedance, they have to collect samples from the entry point. That's as it comes in from the Kankakee River.
And
It's
our entry, where is our entry point?
I don't know the exact location. I just know the facilities that would pump it into the distribution
Okay.
system.
And the old one is near that little shed that you see going down the hill.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rory.
So that would be the entry points like we talked about. Those are tested for lead and copper. And then additionally, the distribution samples like I talked about, those are tested at the actual faucet inside the residence. And so we test both of those for lead and copper. And that's how we have come to the conclusion that it's the premise plumbing and service line material from the water main inside the home that has that lead problem. Because lead is not present in that entry point sample that's coming in, but it is present whenever it comes out of the faucet.
Okay. My other question is, picking back off my colleague, Trustee Gina, have you all checked the health, cancer, all those studies regarding lead that could happen, down the line? Because there's a lot of people that have been sick in our community. Those studies.
So we've been in contact with the Department of Public Health to identify how they'd be able to go about that. So that's something that's within their regulatory oversight, but we're working with them to give them the information we have so they're able to carry that forward.
And also, when looking at the TAP program, it also said that funding, after everyone is tested, then funding will be dished out to the school. I don't know if anybody read that. There's a passage in there that says that. After all the funding is done, and then they'll go to the schools. Like, what's your name? Ms. Boyd. Ms. Boyd was saying we need to be a little proactive in checking those schools with the children as well, especially Trustee Gina as well. So we just want to know how fast and how active are you guys gonna be there? Like she was saying, not just the one publication. We got the one in the mail, but there hasn't been anything since then. So they're not really being proactive and active in the community. They're just going based off of what we say every time at the meeting. We tell people about the TAP program. We had setups and things like that, but we need to steadfast. March 7 is across the street, pretty much. Thank you.
So I just wanted to say that I think this is very helpful feedback to hear that not everybody may know about the TAP, and that's good information. And for my part, one of the reasons I thought it was very valuable to come out today was to talk to the community about the TAP and let them know about the availability, and that relative to the number of people who are eligible, not many have signed up. So thank you so much for the feedback.
Dwayne Johnson, resident. My problem is with the TAP, that Rambo. I called. Finally, when I got somebody, I talked to them. They sent me a form. I filled it out, and nothing. I called. Same thing repeated itself. Send me a form. I filled it out. But yet and still, I buy a filter. It says 3 months. Mine turned red in 3 weeks. At all.
So two things. I want to let's talk afterwards. I'd like to get your address information, and we can run down why there would have been that delay for the issues with the filter specifically. Again, we'll want to do some additional follow-up on our end. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind, if you have some time afterwards, just hold back and I'll get your contact information.
Good evening, everyone. Trustee Brooks, University Park, and a resident. I just want to say that in 2019, I was one of those trustees that when the mayor formed, I guess his quote-unquote called the Water Committee, I was part of it. It was myself, the village manager, and the mayor every Thursday on the call with the Attorney General, and I guess they would communicate with you all as well as with Aqua. I think that one thing that had happened is that I did run for re-election. I won in 2021, but I think politics played a role and said I needed a break, but I didn't have a problem because my colleague, Karen Lewis, took over. But I have a purple notebook full of notes. I've been a detective for many years. 28 years it would have been. I graduated went to the academy this past Monday. One thing I tell you is that when I do an investigation or when I do something, I take good notes. And one thing I noticed that sometimes I feel politics played a lot in the reason why I'm not on there no more. I asked a major question, and Trustee Karen Lewis, we had that discussion, and she kind of brought it to you all. My question that whole time that I asked the Attorney General to ask that, I'm sure you all didn't even get that message. How is it? You did, right, she did. Right, how is it that the water come from the Kankakee, come through all these communities, Green, what was it, how you said Green, what's that town, Green Garden, they run the alert, then all of a sudden they're clear. We get here, and what we notice is that the lead levels split off. I took notes of that. The closer you get to Western, it's crazy with the lead levels. But this way, it's nothing. So I want to make that point because there were people, and we just went, this will be the second election cycle we're going through. We just finished up with petitions. When I'm at the door, I can tell you, everybody pretty much from Black Hawk to Western is sick. Let me also add, Trustee Williams said cancer, but let me also mention stroke. Guess what happened to me this year? There you go, I had a stroke. And I'm healthy. And the problem that I really have with this is that if we can get answers, and I made it clear to the attorney, because I don't quite agree with the consent agreement. I don't. I felt we need more because I was part of, I'm a victim of it in my eyes because it hit us in the face. But what I appreciate was that I still knew the role that there were things that you all pretty much was about compliance. The Attorney General, for those who don't know, it was about suing to put everyone in compliance, and that's their job. They're just trying to get here to bring some of the answers, and I wish more people was in this room to understand that. But if we can find out why the lead levels are higher, the more east we go in University Park. Aqua said that they could not identify service lines. I argued about that as well with Katie because I felt that somebody's lying. Somebody's lying to you all as well as us because it's getting worse. Because when we voted for this consent agreement, our 90 Town Center had over 400 people in here, including First Baptist, New Hope. We all came out. And even then that night, the residents agree with what we're saying. As far as the TAP program, and I just told Trustee Williams, because I know she know I'm gonna look too. They pop a sign out in Industrial Park. The sign, we don't even travel. It's more in Monee than it is in University Park. So they're not even trying to let us know about the TAP program. So we want you to know, if you want it, I got a picture in my phone, detective, just what I do. So I'll give it to you. And the last one, I just want to say, when it comes down to it, for the TAP program, if we can, that's our last hope. But I'm hearing the same thing that the trustees are hearing, and they're not even, well, I thought she's running for re-election, but I know she gets 20 calls just like I used to get to 20 calls. They're people are getting denied, they're receiving the way this gentleman's being treated. If because my biggest complaint, maybe be a reason why I wasn't on the Aqua Committee anymore, the Water Committee, I feel that Aqua keeps getting the advantage with their billion-dollar company over this town. And if we can, we're asking you tonight to help us with that voice because really, to be honest, Channel 7 should be out here tonight. Channel 5 should be out here and knowing that you all are out here helping us because we seem to be mute right now, and it is very disturbing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add one thing, and that is a really important point. We have legal authorities to get compliance. Like you said, the environmental authorities that we have say, okay, if someone's breaking the law, we can make sure they stop breaking the law and start treating water appropriately. We don't have authority to get compensation for past injuries. And so you mentioned the very high levels of lead in 2017, 2019. What we can do is make sure those don't happen again, and that's what we'll continue to do. And in terms of health, like Acting Director Jennings said, we are in contact with the Illinois Department of Public Health. We've provided information about them to the organizers of this event, and all we can do is get compliance going forward. So thank you for making that clear.
And to your point and to the earlier points on TAP denials, the function of the TAP is to approve people. Now, there are people who would be denied for ineligibility for things like geography. Like Andrew and I, or all of us, live in Springfield. We wouldn't, if we applied, we would be denied, and we should be, because that's not the service area. But if you live within the service area, there is not a scenario under the consent order where you should be denied. And I mean, you have us here right now. Right, and so that's what I was going to say. So when those come up, elevate them to us, elevate them within the community, because that's where, so Andrew has like some wonderfully adept attorneys, and one of the best environmental attorneys in the country is who he has working on this, and we'll be able to make sure that that they both address the issues with the people who are administering the program and with Aqua. But I mean, you have our commitment, and if you get to us and say, hey, I've been denied I feel I should not have been. We will get you an answer.
Our village manager did apply for the water grant and was denied by the AG's office, went down to fight against it. So, just to let you know that.
Okay, so I'm not as familiar with that, but we will look into that.
Hi, I just wanted to say something regarding your talking about your concern about why University Park is affected and not certain other communities, or why a certain area of University Park has higher levels. I deal a lot with corrosion control when there's a source or a treatment change, and how that affects the existing scales that's protecting lead from leaching off into the water. So in University Park's case, they were on groundwater wells, and then they made the switch over to the Kankakee water. So what we found is that because University Park was in that groundwater, it had a certain chemistry of the scale that formed because of its exposure to the groundwater. And when that change was made over to the Kankakee River, that changed the water chemistry, and it reacted with the existing scale, and that caused the lead to leach into the water and become higher. And so that's why maybe you don't see the higher lead levels in other communities, but why the University Park had this happen to them. And also in regards to what you said about certain areas of University Park having higher lead levels, what we found is that it has to do with the age of the home and the age of the plumbing in the home, because lead plumbing was banned to a certain degree late in the 1980s. So if you have areas of the system where there's older plumbing, that can have higher percentages of lead in it. And that may be why certain areas of the system you're seeing the higher lead over other areas in University Park.
On the south end, more like where on the west, the east side of Western, some of those houses are brand new. So I guess the question I kept asking over and over and over, and the Attorney General said, well, Trustee Brooks, we're not experts in it. Is it that the PCV more piping that they have in a new housing? I mean, if an old house sit next to a new house, would it still test the same? I mean, because I'm confused about it, because it just seems like in that area, we do have some new houses next to older houses, and the new houses are testing for high level of lead. That was my confusion, for that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends how new the house is. I mean, if it was built in the 1990s or 2000s, it shouldn't have, you shouldn't see the high levels of lead. But maybe there was, a faucet installed or something that was an older faucet that was reused by a plumber, or maybe a plumber didn't follow the correct codes that they were supposed to follow. But in general, in newer homes, we do not see issues with lead, but there are exceptions to that.
Question. My name is Cheryl Jones Harper. Excuse my voice. You talked about the treatment with the orthophosphates. So using that as a treatment, those are chemicals as well. Are the trace elements from those have adverse effects to the body as well?
No, there shouldn't be any adverse effects from the zinc orthophosphate that's being used.
I have a question in relationship to Trustee Brooks. And this question is for you guys, because it has been wondered in the community. Have you guys taken a look at who Aqua gives donations to in terms of political funding?
So that wouldn't be something that would be within our regulatory oversight.
Yeah.
It's certainly possible as part of the work that the Attorney General's office did, they would have. But admittedly, that's outside of what we would typically go into. But I do understand where you're going with the question.
Yeah, considering all the people we've had to deal with in the past and all the no's and the maybes and look over here and look over there, it would be nice to know who they give their campaigns to, because I do know for a fact that Mr. Mike Madigan was one of their recipients. Okay? And there's a lot of other judges and other things and other places where Aqua donates heavily. We would like to know who's on that list. It would be nice to donate that.
Hello, I'm Trustee Forger. Questions that I have, a lot of the exact same thing that the rest of the residents have said and trustees. So the confidence level that the University Park residents have for Aqua is 0. As for the quality of the water, the way the water looks, just how they deal with the customer service, it is not good at all. So to hear that only 118 people have signed up is terrible. It's out of a sampling area of 2,000, you said. So from my understanding, first off, if anybody receives anything from Aqua, they're not paying that much attention to it, they're not caring about it. So when you all see those numbers, to me, it's that the EPA should be in an alert to say that there's something wrong, and that maybe it's something that maybe the EPA should be sending letters out to the residents to say, get your water tested, instead of it coming from Aqua. Because of that confidence level, it's just 0. Nothing that people receive from Aqua or has Aqua's name on it is gonna be looked at or cared for or even believed that they would do right. So the same way with the sampling with Rambo. Everybody that I have not heard, out of these 118 people that signed up, basically everybody, to me, did not qualify. I seen something from a resident. Their lead levels was above 15 parts per billion, several testings. That was just 4 months before she went to go get this testing. So now she gets this testing and then everything is great. So why would you think that resident would think that, oh, I'm going to believe them when I have documents that show that my lead levels was way above 15 the last 2 times they tested, but soon as the program come out, now it's good. So something needs to be done where maybe you all, who's the Environmental Protection Agency, send something out to us residents to say, this is important for you to do. I know that's not part of the consent order and everything. I do understand that. But you all are supposed to be doing the testing. The lead was in the water. The residents have been drinking the water since 2017 to 2019. There should have been a timeline for this testing to occur. Nothing happened. So 2 years, basically, the residents here were drinking. Look at these levels y'all had on the graph, all the way up there. So if it was all the way up there then, believe me, it definitely was all the way up there back within the 2 years. So advocating for the residents, I truly didn't see the EPA really making a big effort. I understand you're supposed to make them get into compliance, but something else should have been done to push and say, we need to do something else. Not just that. Even with the testing sample that Aqua was sending in to you all, to say it's good, it was less than 5% of the homes tested. Each month, each time period, less than 5% of the homes were tested for lead. That is not a good sampling. That's not something to base a decision off of. That was to me, that's terrible. To me, the EPA should have made some type of effort to come out and to do the testing or to have something done independently back then. So I know the time is over with, but just saying as in we can't do anything now, everything is done. Yes, but you all do have the responsibility to make sure they're in compliance. And obviously, no testing was being done. None was done, and like I said, a sampling that Aqua was sending in saying, okay, we're better now, we're better now. Even in this last one that they sent in, it was probably around 30 homes that they tested. So you're gonna use the 30 homes to say, yes, the lead levels is great. We're gonna agree to accept this consent order because they are down low. I think that was just bad. So another question is for the quality of water now. Us residents are seeing that the water has a smell, it's cloudy. Trustee, we were just talking about it was cloudy, very cloudy, sediment. So we don't know as residents, you all say everything is great, but as residents, when you say the orthophosphates, you know what I'm saying? All these different things that doesn't affect, you say it doesn't affect us, how could you tell us that when we're looking at the quality of water right now? And it's not good. For the, so what's this? To see if you all can do the EPA, send out a mailer you all self to the residents in that sampling area. Let me see. And what is the time, the testing timeline?
So kind of taking those in order, and I'm going to defer to our water folks for some of the issues with the smell and sediment within the water. So I'm not skipping over that. They just know they've forgotten more than I would ever know on those components. I agree with everything that you said with respect to the sentiment of the lack of trust with Aqua. I understand where you're coming from. I mean, as Barb had noted earlier, we're going to be doing some additional follow-up because, again, if I were in your shoes, I think I would have those same type of trust concerns. So I think that's entirely fair, and we will be doing some follow-up. On the testing timeline, when you say that, do you mean the timeline within the TAP program or?
No, just
okay.
when you all are coming out general testing, is it, how often do you test per year? I heard you say the 6 months, but that was for the one area, but.
So the current schedule, the 2024 schedule was annual. So over that annual period, they have to collect their samples between June and September. They're required to do that because those are the hot months whenever whenever there's going to be the most lead in the water because of it's the hotter months. They got qualified to do that reduced annual monitoring after their results from 2022 and 2023. During 2022 and 2023, they had to sample every 6 months at double the amount of samples. So that would have been 60 every 6 months, 120 for the year for both 2022 and 2023. Since they had those 4 consecutive rounds that was below our 90th percentile level, they were able to qualify for the annual sample schedule. And then I want to also just clarify the 90th percentile level. That 15 parts per billion is the limit that 90% of all of the samples that are collected have to be below that. So they can only have 10% of that 120 for the year that was over that, or they get the action level exceedance, which is what started off this whole process.
Right, but you just stated that per year, all they had to do was send in a sampling of 120, right? You just said it was 2,000 is in the advisory area.
So that 120, the 60 per 6 months, those are compliance samples. That's not counting in the additional TAP sampling for the TAP program. So that 60 per 6 months for 2022 and 2023 was the base. They were also doing the additional sampling for any of the homes that requested to enter the TAP program.
Okay, because I went through each year and calculated the actual homes, because I got the list, sent in for the list of each year, each month, how many homes were tested. Some months it was 15, some months it was 30. We had some that could have been at 80. But the max, like I said, the max was 5% of the advisory area. And I think, and those were repeat homes. And that's the other thing, that when you do come out, you all use the same exact homes instead of looking at different samplings. So a lot of that was concern. I just think that's something that the EPA should have been on to handle a lot of that. So those are my questions. Thank you.
So I just wanted to respond to that briefly, and I understand the concern. So There are different types of sampling, as Adam just referred to. So the compliance sampling that we talked about, this is actually something that is set in the federal lead and copper rule that the state follows too. So that's the way it's been set up with the 95th percentile and the number of homes to be tested. I do want to note too that in addition to the sampling through the TAP program, there was also additional sampling under an interim order that the Attorney General had entered in the court case. So under that order, residents could additionally request their own sampling too. So that was an additional amount of data that showed the progress that is reflected in that chart from the compliance sampling as well.
I'd also like to touch on the repeat homes. So we would actually require them to use the repeat homes, and that's because if they took a sample and it was high, we're not going to allow them to say, oh, we're going to move to a different sampling location. We want to know what's happening every monitoring period with that high sample. So we're going to force them to use that again because we want to see that data reflected as the time goes on. So that way, if there is a change, we have the baseline from that high. So whenever there's a high sample, we're not going to let them change. We want to see the data from that house over and over again.
Microphone.
I do understand, but it would be those same homes every month that you're looking at. Like there wasn't another subset of homes. I know you have your control, right? So you have your control that you're looking at. But there should be another subset of homes that should be sampled randomly. It's just like, we understand you got to keep your whole control. We got to make sure if these are the ones, if they're getting fixed, that means it's working. But no, that's not true. It's some of them, yes, they're getting better, but there is other areas at that same time that should have been sampled, and that wasn't happening. So.
I want to make sure that we also give voice to the folks that are watching online. So just some shout outs to Sarah Martin, Ebony Only. We have some other folks that are watching that have asked questions. I have a couple of questions from them. The first question is relating to funding that's available for homes that are dealing with this. I understand that there is a group of homes that may qualify for this, but for the homes that don't qualify for it, can you all name some resources that folks can go to get the funding that they may need that they may not be able to get through the program? That's number one. The second thing is what funds are available for businesses. I do know that there are businesses in the area that do not qualify. We as a church applied because if you walk around our church, you'll see that there's still signs up that say, don't wash your hands with this water and whatnot. And so what funds are available for businesses and churches that may not qualify for this program? Those are the first two questions. I'll let you answer those first.
And so from the traditional variety of grants that we offer just under our existing authorities, those are typically driven towards municipalities. So we haven't normally been able to administer a program like that, but we're actively trying to identify them for you all, just recognizing the reality that lead service lines are not the totality of lead-driven issues in water. So we are aggressively trying to seek those out and are going to continue to look until we can find something that is workable for you all.
The other question is from Liletta Rogers. She says, why do they only take a test of the water from the kitchen faucet only? What about testing from the other faucets in the house?
So the compliance sampling is required to use faucets that are regularly used for human consumption. So we want to force them to use the kitchen faucet as opposed to like a washroom faucet or anything like that, just so it better reflects water that's actually being consumed by people.
And this is a Reverend Justin question. As you can hear, there is a high level of distrust with Aqua in this room. And there are countless other people that live in this community that do not trust Aqua. How do you all, as the Illinois EPA, I understand you're not Aqua, but how do you all distinguish yourselves from Aqua? Because quite honestly, it can be perceived that you all are talking the talk of Aqua. And so how do you all show yourselves as we are for the community, with the community, trying to do what we can to help you all, while not sounding like we are the corporate machine that has taken advantage of these people for so many years.
So I think for that, it's less about what we're saying and than it is the behavior. And I mean, that's, candidly, you all don't you don't know any of us. No reason that you should have walked in tonight feeling like you can trust us because there is not that relationship. So it is on us to earn that. And so, I mean, we regulate Aqua. We regulate water supplies across the state. And so that's the primary distinguishing point, but that is a fair criticism of how these sort of structures work. And so, I mean, you asked like how we can be clear that we're different. It's our behavior going forward and our continued engagement is going to be how that will be evident.
And just one note before I throw it to Ms. Stroud. I know she's been waiting ever so patiently. For those of you that have issues with testing, or you know of residents that their testing is way higher than what it should be, we ask that you funnel that information through us here at First Baptist, and we will be sure to continue to have ongoing conversations with the folks not only in this room, but also with the Department of Public Health, as we've been having conversations with them as well. So I'm going to give you my email address, and I'll drop it in the chat for those of you that are watching as well. You can email any of that information to J Hamler, that's JHAM as in Mike, LER, at FBC-UP.org. That's J Hamler, JHAMLER, at FBC-UP.org. Spread that to other residents, funnel that information through us, and we will be sure, as you all know, First Baptist, we don't play. We will be sure to funnel that information to the appropriate people and get the answers that you all as a community deserve.
Good evening. Name is Deborah J. Stroud. I have a big concern. All of the conversation reflects on the single-family homes built before 1987. Is that correct? Okay. So, for the subdivisions that we have out here, may they be multifamily, may they be divisions that have 3 units in one structure, may it be 4 units in one structure, why is there no focus on those locations at all that were all built before 1987?
So individual units are eligible. Individual units are eligible for the tab. So you don't have to live in a single family home to be eligible for the tab.
That's correct. Right. I
Okay.
mean, that is correct.
And the reason I ask that, because we have one building that has 13 floors of
Right.
tenants. And as I mentioned, the other locations that have a number of dwellers connected in the building. They were taken off the advisory early. I'd say, give or take, please don't quote, but I'd say give or take by 2021, they were taken off the advisory. First off, if they were ever acknowledged, how was it determined in a 4-unit structure which pipes did or which pipes did not have lead? How was that determined?
So for sampling in a multifamily structure, if any of those individual units would have the copper with lead solder, all of the units in that multifamily structure would then count as a site that has copper with lead solder present.
So what you're saying is, in one of the subdivisions where there are 4 units to one building, all 4 would be tested or have been tested, will be tested? Are they in an impact area? Do you understand what I'm asking?
So they would all meet the qualification that they have the copper with lead solder present. As far as the impact area, I would let the TAP experts talk to that. But for the plumbing, the premise plumbing part of it, don't look at unit by unit. So that whole building, the address that the building is at, all 4 units in that building would then be qualified as a unit with copper with lead solder present. So they would meet that part of the qualifications.
Okay, I know tonight there are some residents here from those locations I'm speaking of. I don't know, did you get your letter that was sent? Okay, and not to focus on you personally, but I know it's 2 or 3 people in here that live in multifamily locations. Do you recall ever getting any letter? Okay, you did get some type of notice. Okay, so you're saying that all of those residents in turn at this point can contact and follow up as the single family resident can do.
Like apartment A, B, C, yes. Because we have seen those residents as apartment A, B, and C on tap. And they would each qualified for tap separately. There would be, now if it's owned by one person, there's dual requirements there in the customer cooperation agreement. If you are renting per se, then you need to sign your customer requirement, and then also who owns that has to sign that. So there's 2 requirements there. And then that has to be sent back into Rambo prior to beginning TAP, the Technical Assistance Program. So that's the only requirement there if you are renting. If you own your single family, then you're good to go. But if you're a renter, then you are signing as a renter and then as a homeowner. There's been some confusion, and we've had to work through that process in the Technical Assistance Program.
Okay, knowing some of the tenants at a 377 unit subdivision, all of them should follow through the way you just explained?
Yes.
So you're saying at this point, perhaps that management of that subdivision has been contacted?
There's been some confusion.
Receiving a letter or a notice?
If there's if you're renting, then the management, both parties by Aqua or Rambo, who initially sent the technical assistance program, should have notified both.
Okay, and let me interject this
Yes.
fact. 377 unit subdivision, if there's no apartment number attached to a name of a tenant, they do not receive, I don't care if it's a mail out from Jewel, they don't receive it.
Okay.
Generally, it's tossed in the lobby
Okay.
until management removes it.
Okay.
How can they be notified beyond that?
I can see that concern, okay? I understand that. We, when we did our fact sheet mail out, we had some apartment A, Bs, and Cs and had to do the same thing so that we made sure that residents were aware of both. We had some mailers come back. We had some movers. We tried to figure out both to make sure that we had residents get back. We had some calls that they received things, just wanted to know what it was so that we understood. So I can understand that confusion. And I think we can have some conversations past this and see how we can improve that.
And how will we know that that has been done? Those of us here tonight who know somebody
They're
at
going to be in
those
contact
locations.
with Reverend Justin and me, and we will help to disseminate that information to trustees.
Okay,
We
Pastor.
will, that was the purpose of Reverend Justin giving his email address, so that there can be trusted communication that will happen. And so.
Agreed.
yeah,
But
that's
I appreciate you bringing that to my attention.
very important.
Because we have a group, part of us are here tonight, but we meet every other week for concerns, especially on the technical assistance program, for residents on signups, not signups, what's getting there, what's not getting there. So, and that our Divisional Legal Counsel can reach out to the Attorney General's office and move that step forward. So this is definitely an issue that we can take a little further. So I appreciate that.
I want to make sure that people have the opportunity to voice their concerns. Ms. Boyd, I saw you sat back down. You can get on back up, or we can bring the mic to you. And then we have two more, and we're going to start to shut it down. Want to be faithful to people. Want to be faithful to your time. I know it's already cold, so I want to be faithful to time. And if you want to stick around afterward, I'm sure that they'll be able to answer
Yeah,
questions.
absolutely. We'll
or what
stick
have you,
around.
but do want to be faithful to people's time.
Okay, I want to know, do we have a committee out here for aqua water that's getting together to discuss our problem? Is it here at the church? I don't know where the group is. I don't know. I know that we had one before with Theo on it. He was the person to go to. He's no longer that. So who stepped in the shoes to make sure things should be happening in our community among us regarding our water situation?
Great question. We have tried to do some stuff here at First Baptist Church. I think Trustee Fulcher, Trustee Lewis, Trustee Gina have done some of the work on the administrative level with regard to the village. We're trying, one of the reasons we having this here tonight is because we're trying to do that here at First Baptist Church as part of the community. It ain't just church folk. This is community, right? So you're going to be part of that. How about that?
I was just wondering why Mr. Theo's not back on that committee, because he's got all these notes and everything. It just seems to be, I'm not sure what's going on.
So, Ms. Boyd, you know what you're doing right now? You're calling us into accountability.
That's right.
So that's what we're going. That's what we're going to plan to do.
That's right.
When we leave here, to make sure that this continues to happen.
Accountability here, and not
There it
that stuff
is.
written in the
There it is.
newsletter about the water and
There it
says
is.
nothing to the community.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to go back a little bit. Did the water company check with EPA before they put in that phosphate? Did they check with EPA?
Yes, they did.
And you all gave them the okay?
From my understanding, they were told to proceed with extreme caution. The first town hall meeting we had here, whatever the first, I wasn't orthophosphate, it was some before that. But whatever it was, when they changed the water source, they were told to proceed with extreme caution, and they proceeded anyway. And
How you proceed with extreme caution, and you proceed
that's what
anyway?
they said.
That seemed like
I didn't
that's
say
a
it.
go.
They said it. I didn't say it. So I don't. That's what we were told in the very first town hall meeting, that they were told to proceed with extreme caution.
Okay.
So-
Let me just say this one last thing. How are you all going to take this information back? Is there somebody taking notes, a recording or something to make sure you get our questions? Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. Sonia Jenkins Bell. I read an article today in reference to sludge that is coming out of the different water treatment centers and different things like that. And Will County has put caution because they're, causing cancer. Well, here in University Park, during the summer months, we have a horrendous smell that omits from Aqua's water treatment center. And so what I'm concerned is, I listened to Trustee Brooks in reference to them having a lot of health concerns on the eastern side of the community. So what I'm at is that affecting us? And what are you guys going to do about it? Now, we've been warned. Will County is doing what they need to do in reference to this sludge going to the farmland, but it's coming out of our water plant and it's affecting us. We have respiratory issues. We have cancer causing. People have died from cancer, all kinds of lung, respiratory problems, all kinds of strokes. So you all are, what are you going to do as the EPA to stop Aqua from removing this sludge out of our community and omitting this smell during the summer months? Because it's horrendous. We can't even open up our windows. And you smell it at certain times. Now, what I do know is that the village had fined them but they're still not being in compliance with what they should not be doing the way they're removing this sludge. So now that we're finding out that it's being used on farmland and it's causing cancer, Aqua has no respect for anything, for even the farmers. So what I'm looking at is where we're gonna go from trusting them with our water, with our drinking water. Now we're dealing with the drinking water issue, and we're also dealing with respiratory issues. So where do we go? Clean air. What are we gonna do? We got water, now we have bad air. What are we gonna do with Aqua?
So a couple of things with that. So beginning with the water treatment plant, I mean, that's the type of thing that we would be able to send someone out to inspect to verify what the issue is on site. It could be any number of things, but that's something that we would be able to follow up on. With the sludge article, so that wouldn't, the material referenced in that article wouldn't be what would have been causing the odor. So just, and this will be like a very high-level overview, but so there's a handful of man-made chemicals that are really prevalent in almost everything that we have. They're called PFAS, and they're in things like nonstick pans, a lot of waterproof and wrinkle-free clothing, and they basically don't break down in your body when ingested. They're incredibly complex. And there's been an increasing volume of research done at the state and federal level to see where these are. In the article that was referenced I think it was over the weekend, US EPA late last week finished up doing some research on the volume of PFAS in biosolids, and they concluded that there are some biosolids, the sludge, that contain PFAS, and then ultimately that could transition from the biosolid material to the soil, to the water beneath the soil, as well as potentially to the whatever is planted in the soil. As Andrew noted earlier, I mean, we have some specific regulatory oversight functions, and things with agriculture touch at times the Department of Natural Resources and often the Department of Agriculture. What we are doing is that we have done a lot of work on PFAS overall. We are in the process of finalizing regulations that will establish standards statewide for PFAS, and any exceedances of those would be violations of state law. And this is just an instance of regulations having to catch up with science. So we're establishing those. Once adopted, they will be the most aggressive in the country, meaning the most protective. And then those regulations feed into a number of other programs, including our drinking water and our land protection programs. So that's the immediate thing that we're doing. We've done a lot of sampling statewide to try to identify where there may be spots where PFAS is very high, and in those instances, communities were notified if they had any issues. We've been working with outside entities to identify treatment practices that could be implementable to be able to minimize the potential impacts from PFAS. And along the same lines, there's been some federal money that's been available for emerging contaminant programs. We have sought every dollar we can for that, recognizing that we need to, it's hard for regulations to catch up with science, but we want to be as close to that as possible, recognizing the long-term impacts.
Okay, listen, we got 3 left. 1, 2, 3. Gina? No. 1, 2, 3. Talk to him afterward. 1, 2. We got 1, 2, 3, and then we're gonna shut it down. And again, you'll have the opportunity to talk to them afterward, because we gotta move. All right? Gina's just gonna have to be mad at me. She always mad at me anyway. Gina, stay mad at me. Go ahead, brother. God bless.
Hey, James. Earlier, I believe you said that anybody who are in the homes of 2,000 affected should be eligible for the technical assistance program, but it seems like some of the residents are still having issues being approved. Is there a way to set up maybe a clinic or a hotline or something to help people walk through their application process so it's simplified and they don't get denied?
So Barb's contact info is actually on the slide deck. She'd be your best point of contact within the agency.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, my name's Chris Weber. I'm a journalist and a graduate student at Governor State University. It's my understanding that when they switch the water source, there's a requirement for them to test the water every 6 months. Is that correct? So they should have tested it at least 3 times between the switch and when they found the lead in the water. Is that correct?
Correct. When they made the switch to the water, they were required to increase the frequency of sampling. And I don't have the results from 2017, 2018. I can get those, but the issue was when we saw that huge spike in June of 2019, that was far above the results that had been prevailed to that time, to my understanding.
Sure, sure. And is it safe to say that when they switched, they knew there was a significant risk that, you know, harmful things could come through the water pipes then?
Well, and I can let the water people speak.
There's always a risk of corrosion issues when you make a large change in water quality, especially going from something like a groundwater source to a river.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I ask because they're quoted in news articles saying, oh, how would we know that this could happen? So that's my main reason for asking. It's pretty obvious that they should know that this could happen, right?
It's hard. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, and actually, you know, back when this happened in 2017, I mean, I don't know how educated everyone was on these issues of changes in water quality and how it can affect corrosion and existing scales. It's kind of, you know, like the University Park actually brought to all of our attention, you know, what could potentially happen. I mean, I think that's like the first time that had happened in the state where we had a big water quality change and saw the lead results from that. So I don't think it was necessarily like expected that definitely there was going to be a lead issue, but we definitely had concerns at that time.
Well, and I think Flint was like 2014, and it was like a really similar issue.
Yeah, yeah. So
I guess my next question is there a requirement for a water company to inform the citizens that risk exists?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Is there a requirement for a water company to inform the citizens, you know, their customers, that risk it's possible, rather than just keeping them in the dark and changing their water over?
There's a requirement now that systems have to notify us anytime they're making any large change in treatment or sources. They do have to notify us, the agency, so.
Right, but is there any plans, maybe, if it's not a rule already, to change the regulations so that the citizens would know, so then they have the, I guess, knowledge to be able to test their water when that change occurs, rather than kind of just, we're going to test water in a few locations and not letting them know that it's a possibility?
I don't think it's a requirement at this time to notify citizens.
So there is something called the Consumer Confidence Report that water supplies are required to put out every year to give a summary of their sampling data and where they get their water from, and that it would be included in that. We require when they switch sources now to go to the most frequent sampling the law allows, and now there's a couple of lead laws that have recently been adopted that are more strict now that require, like now they have to sometimes do what's called a desktop study or corrosion study and test the water before they do the switch with pipes or they actually take pipes out of the existing system, like would go to someone's home, take out, and then run that in a laboratory and test that water to make sure that there's not going to be any adverse effects. So those are recent law changes that had that, but those are the main methods we're doing now to make sure that something like this doesn't happen.
One more question. From what I understand, this program is going to end, right? And there's still going to be lead solder in the pipes of some of these houses. Is there any requirement for them to test the water to make sure they're continuing to put the right amount of chemicals in there to prevent it from happening again?
Yeah, after a system installs what we call optimal corrosion control treatment, which in this case is the zinc orthophosphate because we can see it's working, then we set what we call water quality parameter ranges that a system has to meet, and every 6 months they have to report their testing of the orthophosphate, the level that they have to meet a minimum level. For University Park, it's 3 milligrams per liter.
of orthophosphate is a minimum that they have to keep in their system at all times, and they have to report that to us every 6 months, so we know that they're feeding the right amount of chemical. They also have pH ranges that they have to stay in as well to make sure that they're in the most effective range for that chemical to work. So
And what happens if they don't?
they'll get a violation.
They'll get a violation notice, and if it's not addressed, there'd be another lawsuit.
And, sorry. Is there any communication to the customer though, right? Like I realize you guys will penalize them, but is there like any communication to anybody else? Like
The Illinois EPA's website has what we call a drinking water watch, and you can look up the Aqua's water system for University Park and all of the historical data for their violation notices, monitoring requirements, all of those types of things. You can look up and see all of the latest data.
And so there's also public notices that go out. If they go out of compliance with any of those, they would have to issue public notice. For action level exceedances, if that were to ever happen again, that has to go out within 24 hours of when we get the results. It has to be presented on television, radio, and a direct mail to each customer. For the other things, those would be included in the consumer confidence report that was mentioned earlier. So the main way that that's issued is on your water bill, you're gonna have a link. That link will take you to where that consumer confidence report is. Go to the back of that. That'll list every public notice. If they were to be out of compliance with any of our programs, they'll have individual public notices for each program they were out of compliance with.
One more question. Go on, Gina, get to the mic.
Trustee Jewel Thompson. This young man took all my questions. He really did. No, but I have a hard question. So from 2017 to 2019, something was happening with our water was changing. Did not the IEPA know about it? And if you did, what was your responsibility to us, the citizens of Illinois? What was your responsibility to notify us? Because we can't depend on Aqua as we can see. So what is the IEPA's responsibility to the residents when the utility is in violation? You're gonna leave it up to the utility to do the testing when they created the problem and notify the people?
So our responsibility is to hold Aqua accountable. We do the enforcement process against them. Whenever they get out of compliance, we're the one that
Put the mic to you.
starts the violation process, and if they don't follow that, we're the one that recommends the Attorney General's office takes enforcement action against them.
And so while you're doing that, we didn't know about it for 2 years.
And so the other thing I would want to say is the switch happened in 2017.
Right.
There was the scale already. That would take time. We can get the exact levels for between 2017 and 2019, but that scale wouldn't come off immediately.
But we wouldn't know when it started then. So that would come with regular testing, compliance testing, right? Okay, so.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be easy for us. We would have to know what website to go to be checking the water safety ahead of time. So we don't know how long we've been exposed, really. And I wonder, do you know how long we've been exposed?
So the first part I'd like to answer for that, the consumer confidence report, that's the main way that we require Aqua to distribute information about
I never
the levels.
received one, ever.
The main way that they do that is through the water bill. It has to be distributed before July 1st. So between now and July 1st, make sure every monthly water bill, we can all get the word out that check that for a link. That's going to be the primary way they distribute it, because that way they get it to everybody who pays for water, and that link makes sure everybody can go somewhere to go onto it. So that's going to be the primary way that you can check on the results that we receive for all of the chemicals that we test for from Aqua, and that's going to be their primary way to give the public notice out. So that's going to be my biggest recommendation for how you can keep up to date on what levels of each contaminant that we test for are in the water.
So the IEPA is a public body. I work for IDPH. So everything we do is a public record. It's easy to find. So what I did not know that my water was contaminated. What is your responsibility? We already know what Aqua's responsibility is. And going forward, is your responsibility going to change?
So I think that there's a couple of components to that. So one, as both Adam and Andrew noted, is enforcement. I mean, that's one of the tools that we have clear authority and a long history of being able to do that through the combination of our violation notice process as well as litigation. Some of your points and then the previous questioners' points on public outreach, I think get really to how we are re-examining public participation. Historically speaking, and what you all would have experienced in 2017, the agency's outreach efforts were very focused, and they were traditionally in areas where we were required to do public meetings, or we were otherwise tied into doing specific activities as a result of a consent decree or a permitting transaction. In the last 6 years, there's been a lot of evolution in that, and some work that both Andrew and I have been very involved with is dramatically expanding what public participation looks like for us. And so rather than exclusively relying on areas where we are required by law to do outreach, we are doing much more what would be considered voluntary outreach. And that's where people like Barb are so important, and that's why their group has expanded in the last year, because we recognize that some of the work that we do is not going to be intuitive to everybody. I mean, it's not intuitive to me, and I've been here for 15 years. But it is our responsibility to be able to communicate what we are doing, why it's important, and what it means to the communities that are impacted by that. So I wasn't part of the decision-making for this in 2017, so I can't go into all of the factors that ultimately would have weighed how we got to where we are. But I can say that if we were presented with something similar today, the type of outreach that we do through our community relations folks and through permitting would be very different, and it would have a more community involvement.
I had just one other quick point, and sorry to break in, but you'd asked about the testing results from 2017, and what I can commit to do when we get back is I can get those results and provide them to Reverend Williams and Pastor Justin, and so they have those. Those are all public records. Those are all public records. So, and we will provide them to the organizer of this meeting to respond to the concerns we heard today.
Last question, and then we're going to close out. Last quick question, Trustee Gina. 3 seconds.
Okay. I just want to know, did you guys know that Aqua is coming around now and randomly going to people's houses? Mine was one of them. And they're coming in, they are looking at your water meter, they're looking at your pipes, they're going outside to the sewer. They didn't take any water samples. They say they're looking for lead and copper. And I found it kind of strange that, they're doing this. They do give you a gift card, but they just started this recently. And the other thing is, since we don't own our water system, can you guys force Aqua to apply for some of these fundings and grants for us? Because it won't be no sweat off their back if we, that to me would make sense for them to want us to get new infrastructure and pipes. So I'm not understanding, since they know we don't own it, why won't they do something to help us? Because they were the problem.
So I can take the first part of that question, the reason that they're coming in and checking your home for the premise plumbing and service line material. There's two main reasons. The first is the inventory, the material service line inventory. So they will have to come in and they have to document what every single service line in their entire distribution system is made out of. So that way we'll have the record of what it is. The second is for the compliance sample site plan. They have to get each sample site approved with us before they can take a compliance sample. And we're not going to let them get it approved unless they can verify what the service line is made out of and what the premise plumbing is made out of. That's so we can make sure that they're taking samples from sites that have lead solder present, so they can't take a sample from a new home and use that as a clean sample.
Okay, and I just want to thank Pastor because he was the first pastor in church to invite us in when this catastrophe happened. Immediately, he called a meeting here. I was here with bells and whistles, and he set up committees. He had sheets over there for us to sign up. Myself, Roy Williams, Deborah Stroud, Deborah Taylor, Rhonda Braggs, we were on that committee. He made us do communication, and it was wonderful. And he has not let us down, so we appreciate him. Everybody give him a round of applause.
Don't be trying to butter nobody up because I let you speak. Don't be trying to butter me up. I don't tell you. I ain't.
They put bill about the water, the various things we were talking about, put in there urgent in big bold red letters, urgent, important, or something to draw the person's attention to this notice. That's for EPA.
I wanted to say real quick that the part of the program the Illinois EPA has is a field operations section for both wastewater and drinking water. There's field staff that are throughout offices through the state who actually come out on site. So if you ever have any concerns, I heard some concerns about cloudy water, sediment in water, I heard some concerns about smells, you can contact the regional office and they will investigate that. You can also do that anonymously, whether you want to call in or do it on our website. So I just want to make you aware that that avenue is there for you to check into things. If you had a question about the consumer confidence report, you could call the regional office, or a question, how's my water? And staff there will can give you an explanation of where things are.
Thank you, Aqua. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you all for answering some tough questions. Thank you for coming into, so we're glad for, now what I do want to remind people of is the email address. If you have concerns and you can't get through, the email address, jhamler, Jhamler, Jhamler at FBC-UP.org. We are not trying to cut you out from going directly to them. We're giving you another avenue, all right? So that we are able to funnel them and funnel the information to I'm about to call y'all the ICC, IEPA, all these acronyms, right? I do want to share, just before we go, a lot of people, when they look at the mail, they're just looking to see what it is and get rid of it. We are in a digital age. People respond to text quicker than they respond to emails, snail mails, all of those types of pieces. So I want to encourage you all to possibly look at those things as means of getting some of the pieces out that need to happen or need to be made aware, people need to be made aware of with some of these pieces of information that are necessary. So I'm not sure who's over that, but tell them that's what they said. All right. Thank you very much. Before we close, do want to give a shout out to Southsiders Organized for Unity and Liberation, who are here, one of our organizers who are here with us. Want to salute also Dr. Elliot Fackler at Governor State University, who had an entire class, his whole class last semester was studying the water issue in University Park. And so I want to give them kudos. Want to salute our trustees who are here, who have been on front lines from jump. And thank you all for being here tonight. Certainly want to salute Reverend Justin Hamler, who has been on front line as well from First Baptist Church of University Park. Let's bow in a word of prayer, and then you can come up and talk to our guests for the evening if you have any more questions, like I'm sure Gina does. Amen. Let's pray. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this evening. Thank you for this space. Thank you for this time. Thank you, oh God, for this day. We pray now that all of the information that has gone forth would educate us, not only educate us, but inspire us to keep fighting. We pray, God, that there would be a resolution to the water issue, that there would be evidence that there is a resolution to the water issue. As we celebrate the birth on this day of the drum major for justice, we are reminded that he said that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. God, help us to be agents of change for justice whether it be water, whether it be food, whether it be homelessness, whatever it may be, that your children may live with the grace and dignity that you created them with. We thank you. We give you praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.